So today I wanted to touch on partners and what happens if a partner is still drinking, because it's come up a few times in the group. I also feel quite anxious about talking about this stuff because I feel quite underqualified in some respects to talk about this. I'm very lucky to now find myself in a relationship with someone who doesn't drink, but actually in all my previous relationships, apart from the one I was in when we gave up together, I've actually been out with people who don't drink anywhere near as much as me. So I guess that the shoe's always been on the other foot. I've been the pain in the arse pisshead. But actually it comes up a lot, and some of you have shared some really good advice today, and I sort of wanted to break it down into stages like I try and do. So relationships are difficult at the best of times, and it doesn't matter if everything's going swimmingly. There are always things to negotiate when there are two people in living in a close space, or whether you're in an intimate relationship with someone, or even if you've got a close friendship or a housemate. There are always going to be niggles because you are two individuals in close proximity trying to live, and you get to see and feel each other's ups and downs at every part of the day. So it's not easy, even if you were just completely sober all of the time. It gets harder if, like many of us are, some of our better relationships and more intimate relationships may have come about because we met somebody when we were out drinking, or they may have evolved into a quite nice, safe, cosy evening in front of the TV with several bottles of wine, and your relationships matured into that. Whatever happens, alcohol has probably played a large part in many of our relationships, either getting them together or sustaining them. And I put the washing machine on. This is totally my fault. Can you hear the washing machine? Sorry, guys. Concentrating on your relationship is a really good investment of your time, whether you're sober or whether you're giving up drinking or whether you're still drunk. Looking at how you nurture and look after your relationship is really important, and your friendships and all of those things. Because for me, they're all on a linear between from very close, intimate relationships all the way through to really important friendships. What you might find when you take alcohol out of the equation, when you and your partner have been used to drinking, is there's suddenly not only a massive void in your life, but a massive void in your partner's life too. And they can then begin to feel a bit anxious about the fact that things have changed for them too. Of course, normally they have no problem if you want to do something that's important for you. But the minute it begins to impact on them, it can make them very anxious and feel very insecure. So the first thing to do is put yourself in their shoes, because by doing that and thinking through how they may feel about your change in relationship with alcohol will help you have better conversations about what you might need from them. Now, of course, you're not necessarily asking them to change their drinking, but you are asking them to be supportive of something that you do. But by being supportive of something that you're doing, they may feel like you're taking something away from them. So that's really important to understand before you start any negotiation or discussion with a partner or a close friend or a housemate about how this works or how this is going to work for you all. It also may not be apparent right at the beginning. It may take a few weeks for some of these feelings to kick in before you realise that actually it's harder to sit next to somebody who's swigging a bottle of wine when you're trying not to drink than you thought it might be. It also may be easier. You may also surprise yourself. So it doesn't mean that you have to know what it is that you need at the very start of this journey. It may become apparent as you go along. So remember that you don't have to have all the answers straight away. You don't have to know what you need straight away, but you have to listen to both how you're feeling about a situation and how your partner may be feeling about a situation. I hope that makes some sense. So what happens if everything isn't all right? Because of course, not drinking might expose the fact that a lot of your relationship spare time is based on drinking, and they may be miffed that you're taking something away from them. They may not be as supportive as you would hope to be. They're not ready for the change that you're willing to make, and they may feel that you want them to change, and that may be not what you're asking them to do, but they may feel really conscious all of a sudden. And they may even, at the worst point, try and sabotage you from the goal that you're trying to do. And I know that some people have been talking about that sabotage as well. So let me just go back now that the washing machine has stopped spinning and say that working on your relationship is good to do at any point in your life. And actually, it's a really good distraction activity to focus on, and a very good nurturing activity to focus on while you're changing your drinking. That you may not know how changing your drinking may impact on your relationship straight away, but do try and put yourself, first of all, in the shoes of your partner to see how they may feel, because it does change the dynamic. So what can you do about this? And I've been thinking a lot about this because part of me, very politically and in my background, says we are individuals. We are free to do what we want to do and what's right for ourselves, and it's not up to a partner to decide for us what we should be doing or stop us doing what we feel is right for us. And I do believe that very strongly and very sincerely. But of course, your relationships are your relationships, and you're in close proximity with people, and what we do always affects other people. So it is really important to consider other people in that, and also because you really don't want them to sabotage you as you're going through. So you are this strong, independent, wonderful human being which is in a relationship with somebody else. How can you begin to unpick what you might need to do to help you change your drinking? The first is to have a conversation, but plan that conversation. Conversations that are difficult are always better to do when planned. In your when you're sat thinking about how your partner might feel, if you're planning the conversation based on what you think they may be feeling at any point in time, then you can begin to plan a conversation that's constructive, and start thinking through how you might approach a conversation based on how you feel they may be reacting to your change in drinking. So, for example, if you think that the first area of panic for your partner is that you won't be going to the pub on a Friday night together, you can begin to plan how in your conversation you can deal with that, either through suggesting alternatives or providing reassurance. Actually, I still really want to go to the pub with you on a Friday evening, but this is what I would like to happen instead. Or how about if for X amount of time we don't go to the pub on a Friday evening and we try and explore something new together? Exploring new things together is an amazing thing to do in a relationship. So don't underestimate it, that planning and doing and creating something together is an exciting thing to do. But if you can begin to preempt where some of their anxiety might be, then they will be less hostile because you've thought about what it is that may make them anxious and hostile, and try and preempt that and have a plan in place to do that. So first of all, think of them in their shoes and begin to plan a conversation you want to have with them. Now, that conversation could happen right at the beginning when you've decided to change your drinking, or it may happen after a few weeks when you realise there are certain things that they do that are making it harder for you, and I'll come on to that in just a second. You may need to spread your conversations over more than one conversation. I think it's always really good to end a conversation with a partner and say, this is how I'm feeling right now at this point in time. As things progress, things may change slightly. I may feel differently. I may find that the pub isn't such a nice place to be on a Friday evening. We might need to revisit that. Or actually, if I'm feeling stronger after a few weeks, then how I feel about this may change. Because you're not asking them to change forever. You're asking them to help you make a change in the here and now. So do realise that this is a conversation that doesn't need to happen just once, but may be spread over a number of times. And then the other thing is to be really clear about how you feel. So I had come back to the planning. So you may want to explain in the conversation about why you're making this choice, and that this choice is a choice about you and your health and how you feel about alcohol, because nobody can take away something that's really important to you that you feel you need for yourself. You might want to reassure them that you're not asking them to change as well, but you're asking them to help you. Now, when you love somebody and care about somebody, helping them is one of the greatest things that you can do. And most people can't refuse when you ask for help. Now, I know this might be difficult for some of you because you've probably never asked for help, never asked for what you've needed before, but it's a really good practice to get into. And that's why I say that learning about and nurturing your relationship and learning about that during this process is worth the investment of time and energy. So think about what it is that you might need from them. So I'm not asking you to change your drinking, but for a few weeks, I would appreciate it if we could do A, B or C. Or if for a few weeks you could avoid drinking in the house on these nights of the week. Make it really clear and really specific how they can help you. And then you're co-opting them to help you in your journey, rather than them feeling that every time you're not drinking, you're making a judgment about them and their alcohol. Now, you may be in your head, but we all know, because this has happened to you too, that unless somebody's ready to change their drinking, you can't make them. You can inspire them with your behaviour. You can show them how it's working for you. They may decide to do it with you if you talk to them about why you're doing this for you and why it's really important. But you can't make them do anything. And actually, you'll make it harder for yourself if you try to. So try and set some real tangible things that they can do to help you. Make them smart, so give them a time frame. Make them specific. Make them very measurable. Allow there to be some element of compromise. You're not saying that you must never go out on a Friday night, but some Friday nights would it be possible if we could do A, B and C, and come from a place of negotiation and friendship and compassion, and understanding that you have no more control over them than they have over you, about how you want to live your life. I will put in the links after this, a link to how to have difficult conversations sober, because I go through a whole process of non-violent communication, which all stems from trying to have a conversation where it doesn't sound like you're blaming each other. You may notice that actually as a society we are trained to have quite aggressive conversations with each other, which are all based around blame, when actually you don't need to do that. You need to be able to articulate in a different way, and I will share those links with you too. Give them a role in your sobriety. Give them some very clear outcomes. Tell them what you need, and I know that might be difficult for some of you. I recommend also a book called The Dance of Intimacy, which UC will also give us a link for, by Harriet Lerner, and I will send you a link for that too. But this helps you realise that by investing time and energy in your own self-development, in the things that you want to change about yourself, in nurturing yourself as an individual, you make your relationship stronger, not weaker. And the reason why I talk about that is because when your partner may be out drinking at a time that might be difficult for you, or you're feeling you're missing out, so we come back to FOMO from last week, you need to be nurturing yourself to make you stronger for the journey ahead, for not drinking in the weeks ahead. You need to be spending time nurturing yourself. And this book tells you why nurturing yourself isn't only just good for changing your drinking, but it's actually good for your relationship in the longer term. So see some of your spare time as being invested in that self-nurturing and relationship nurturing that you can do. Now, if I come back to talking about asking your partner things that may be useful for you to do and ways that they can help you, it's also worth saying that sometimes you might ask them to go that extra mile and make quite a big change, and that's okay too. You're allowed to say to them, actually, you know, whilst I want to compromise and of course go to the pub more often, in the first 4 weeks, I think that's going to be difficult. But talk to them about how some of those changes are temporary, that they're not forever. And I'm going to let you into a secret here. which is once that you've practiced some new behaviours, some change of routine, it's quite possible that might stick for the longer term. It's sort of like faking it till you make it. You may find that by doing something new together, that may actually become the something new that you do for the longer term. But don't scare them off. Tell them they're temporary changes to get you through a particular point in time, and that will they just have confidence and compassion for you and join you on that journey. So it may be that you change your social life for a short term, but you talk about what you replace it with, just the same way as we talk about, you know, replacing an alcoholic drink with a non-alcoholic drink in a nice glass. It's the same with your social life. What are you going to do that feels just as special, just as important time together, about not work, but about you as a couple or as good friends? How could you create that same feeling, but by doing something different? So have a talk with them about the social life. They might have some good ideas too. There may be something in the back of their mind they've always wanted to do, but felt that you didn't want to not go to the pub anymore. It's amazing how often when you start these conversations, you realise that you're actually both on the same page and you were both not mentioning it because you didn't want to upset the other person. The other is to always have something in the fridge. We say that anyway, but an alternative drink in the fridge. But it means that when you know your partner's going to be drinking, you've got your replacement. You know what you're going to be drinking instead. You've got something that satisfies you in the same way. Have a clear idea of what they can do to help you, what you want to happen. Be clear about what you want to happen. I want us to still be an amazing couple, still have great laughs and belly laughs together. I just think we'll do that better if we go to this comedy club for the next 4 weeks rather than the pub, for example. Give them a role in your journey. The other thing you can do to make the temporary changes is spend some more time in bed having sex. Sounds good to me. It's a good way to learn how to reconnect with each other without alcohol. We get used to having lots of drinks and falling into bed, and actually sober sex is amazing. It's really awkward to start with, a bit like social situations, but give it a little bit of time and you'll realise that being totally present for some really important intimate moments, whether that's a big old crafty snog or an evening out with a friend or sex, is amazing. And actually Rachel has said that, actually not Rachel, it was Coral who said that sober sex is now actually a lot better. You're awake and present more fully, and it's much more intimate. So maybe think about that as a really cunning distraction. But Rachel talked also about the fact that they've replaced the evening in the pub with dog walking. It's a great distraction. It reduces their stress, and they're spending a lot more time talking to each other. So don't underestimate how fulfilling those things will be and what you might be able to find out about each other. And Coral is confirming she has great sex. Brilliant, Coral. Thank you very much. Always like to have confirmation. So think about all those things you can do instead. Then the other thing I'd ask you to do is to write the list of benefits about in your relationship by being able to change your relationship with alcohol. Because if this was really easy, right, everybody would be doing it. So it's really important to remember the benefits for you of changing your drinking. And being present with the person that you love is really important. They might not be 100% present if they've got a hangover, but you are present for them and you're able to spend time with them. You're able to learn more about each other. You can have sober sex. You can learn new ways to de-stress together. You can find a new hobby together. You can make something together. There is nothing more amazing than having a joint project with a friend or with a partner that you can do that means that you spend time producing something. So for some people that's actually producing a child, but actually they can be more short term than that. They don't have to last about 18 years. You can have an art project together. You can do some photography together. You can learn to de-stress together. You can, do some writing together. Doing things with other people is really amazing. Drinking has no output that you can look at the end and go, wow, we did this. But actually doing a project together does. So start writing down all those benefits that you're getting out of being more present in that relationship that you're in. Then I was going to go on to the fact that despite that all the women's magazines particularly say, you can't get everything you need as an individual from just one other person. For example, and I've been saying this a lot, and I hope Yusi's not listening, Yusi doesn't particularly like eating out to dinner and going to posh restaurants and taking photos of his food to put on Instagram. But that's okay, because I actually have loads of other friends who do. So he doesn't need to do that with me. I can go and do that with those other friends. And that's the same for you. So you don't want to do the pub on Friday night, but he or she does. Then why don't you find a different friend to go and do something different with? If you want to do a project or do something new, then that might not be with your partner, that might be with someone else. And I always talk about the fact that I've reconnected with lots of friends who are disconnected from me because all I ever wanted to do was to go to the pub. And then if they came out with me, they would end up getting drunk, and they just didn't want to do that anymore. Reconnecting with those friends and doing things with them that is really lovely. Like today, I had a really lovely brunch with a friend, and we sat and we talked for ages. And that was far more satisfying than the times that we ever used to go to the pub. Or going out with a friend who particularly likes walking. If your partner doesn't like walking, then find someone who does. If your partner doesn't want to go to the theatre, but you think that's the thing you want to do, then find someone who does. If your partner doesn't want to play Scrabble, then find someone who does. They do not have to provide every single bit of emotional and social stimuli that you need. You can find that in other people too. So start to write the list of your other possible cheerleaders, people you want to reconnect with. It's amazing if you can get up early on a Saturday morning without a hangover. You can fling yourself on a train and you can be anywhere and do a day trip and see someone you haven't seen for years and reconnect with them, and come back and feel like you've had a really satisfying day, and then spend the evening having dinner with your partner with a non-alcoholic drink. All of these things are possible. They don't all have to come from the one person that you happen to have the most intimate relationship with. So just to recap, have a conversation that's planned. Know what you want to say, know what you want from them, and put yourself in the other person's shoes so that you can understand where some of their anxiety might come from. Then make sure that you might spread this over several conversations. You might feel that you want to change, that things might change and evolve over the time that you're not drinking, and that's fine too. Have a clear idea of what you want to happen, how you think they can help you, make some suggestions, have some ideas ready, and reassure them that this only has to be temporary, even if secretly you may enjoy it so much it will last forever. Then also make sure that you've got alternative drinks in the fridge, and that you're investing time in some of the tools that create really nurturing relationships. And like I said, I'm going to provide the link to that book and some other bits and pieces. Then remember that you can get support and from other people. You can find some of those social things you want to do with other people. They don't all have to be from your partner. So let them go to the pub with their mates. You find someone else to do what you want with. Then the final thing I wanted to do is touch on what happens when they're drunk at home with you. And I was scratching my head a little bit, literally, about that, because I wasn't quite sure, because it sounds like a really horrible situation to be in. And then I realised that this is your home too. This is your nest. This is the place that you belong. And there, in most cases, is more than one room. So decide what you want to do instead. Just like if you were planning to go to a party where we suggest that you plan and know how you're going to exit, do exactly the same here. So they're in the front room watching football, getting bladdered. It's their home too, and they need to be allowed to do that. Now you've got a number of choices. You can go and stay over at someone else's house and have a great girly night or a great boy night and do something else. No one says that you have to sleep every night in your own home. The second is that you may want to put that time aside with a whole series of things that you want to do that are self-nurturing, that are about moving you to the next level in your journey to moderate or be alcohol-free. That might be reading a book, that might be having a bath, that might be doing sewing, knitting, doing a course on Skillshare, but make this a time when you progress something where you can feel by the end of the evening that you've either made yourself feel amazing, or that you've nurtured something in you that you really wanted to do, that you've achieved something. So, really, pile it in, make sure you've got a great evening planned in the space that you've got planned for yourself. The other thing is it's not a hard and fast rule that you always have to share the bed with the same person every night, come hell or high water. If they're pissed and you don't want to lie next to somebody who's extra snoring and stinks of beer or red wine, then go into a different room or make them go into a different room. It's fine. It's one night. It won't kill you. And it means that you can wake up refreshed and happy and not feeling like a grumpy bastard because they've come and ruined that lovely, harmonious space that you've created yourself. So, it's not a biggie, it's allowed, it's something that will help you. And then you're also free to get up in the morning and pootle around while they sleep off their hangover. It doesn't ruin your following morning, which I think is really important, that it's not just about the night, it's about not ruining the following morning. And if you already know they're going to have a hangover the following morning, then plan your morning around what you want to do, not feeling grumpy that they're not up and doing what you wanted them to do with you. Just get on with your life. It's only one morning. They don't do it all the time. If they do it all the time, that's a slightly different conversation. But like I said, you can't force people to change, but you can inspire them. You can show them what a difference it's making to you. You can begin to have those conversations, but you need to start those conversations from a place of compassion and never using the word should. We could do many things together. We could do many things in our lives, but nobody should do anything. And I was really pleased with Joanne saying that actually it was quite nice watching their partner have a hangover because she knows that she no longer has to go through that anymore. And I must say, when I gave up drinking, my partner fell off the wagon several times. I also met them in a place where they were incredibly pissed and acting in a way that I thought was really awful and inappropriate. And I didn't quite know what to do. But all it did was actually stiffen my resolve because I didn't want that to be me anymore. And it made me flash back to really awful situations that I had done the same when I had propositioned to people and been inappropriate and done all sorts of things that happen when you've got too much wine in your system. So it gave me flashbacks thinking, I don't ever want to do this again. Here's somebody that I love doing exactly those things. And it hurts me to see that. So how much must that have hurt people to see that when I did them? And also when they were hungover the next day, I just thought, thank goodness. And they were full of, regret. And I don't ever want to feel that regret again from drinking. I feel it from many other things, but not from drinking. So sometimes their lack of sobriety can help reinforce yours. And I suggest that you always see it that way and not as the fact that you seem to have missed out on something, because the following morning you will never feel that you missed out on that hangover. So I want to sort of reassure you all or remind you all that relationships are difficult normally anyway. Alcohol clouds nearly everything. So working on your relationship in tandem with working on your drinking is no bad thing at all. That you are an individual, that you don't need to get everything you need from one person. You can co-opt other people into your life to achieve the things you want to do. It's partly why we do the brunches, for example. So we can have a lovely lunch out with new and different people. But also that you can, if you're very clear and specific and have conversations that start with compassion with your partner, then you can begin to unpick some of that and get the help and support you need. So I hope that's been of some use today. I think it is a difficult issue, and there is another issue if actually the person in your life has got a severe drinking problem, and I haven't really touched on that, but I'm hoping that your positive influence is part of the start of that journey for them too. 7:42. Thank you for understanding about my washing machine. I promise I won't do that next week. But I now have clean clothes and I have a feeling of satisfaction that I've been incredibly productive today. So I hope that helps. And I will speak to you next week. Bye.